Hey y'all, we have Allison with us today, and I am so excited because she's going to talk about and unpack a topic that we've kind of been playing with a little bit, and we want to talk about it, but we don't really know is it taboo to talk about because it's intuition. We know it, we feel it, it's there. Sometimes it hits us like a brick wall, but really, what is intuition, and how do we trust it? How do we learn more about it, Allison?
So our intuition is our sixth sense. And it's like our mind always wants to override something. It's like, oh, it looks good on paper. You know, it, the job feels good, a relationship looks good. But the reality, we always have to see what it feels like. And intuition lives in our body. And a lot of times, what happens is when we know that something is off, but we can't put our finger on it. We get sick or ill because it's our body's way of saying, hey, something's wrong, or you get a symptom in your body because it's suppression of your intuition. And we have, our five senses in this physical world, but in the spirit world, which we came from, we're spirit first and then descended into these physical bodies. We have these extrasensory abilities, which is where we can hear, sense, feel, know, or see something visually. And those senses have to kind of be exercised to start to trust ourselves.
I love that you kind of break it out like that because so often we'll get a feeling, at least speaking for myself, I'll get a feeling and my brain can come up with every rational, logical excuse to be like, you crazy girl, put that feeling back in a box and let's keep trucking. How do we balance that?
The thing is I love to, first of all, we have to exercise it, right? So it's like, what does that feel like in my body, and start to see what does a feeling feel like. But when sometimes people are in like indecision about decisions, I tell them, and they're coming to me to ask, and I want to empower them with their own knowledge. And I say, okay, let's come in here and just check in with your body. What is that? If you made that decision, what does that one feel like? Okay. Does it feel more expansive or more contracted, or light or more heavy? And then, okay, decision two, and then come back into that. And that allows people to kind of start feeling into, does something feel right or not right? You know?
I like that. So you kind of play out the and then what? Okay, so your intuition says you should do A. If you do A, what do you think's going to happen? Are you going to be eaten by a dragon, or like, and then okay, let's play it through. And then so then how do you kind of develop that over time? If let's say your intuition is wrong about something, I could see that really damaging the trust with yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is just a skill, right? So it's just like anything. The more that you practice in trusting yourself and how you feel about something, the more you're going to build that skill. And sometimes there is contrast. It's like, okay, that job wasn't right for me, but we had to go through that experience in order to know what was right. A relationship, bad relationships, know when we get a good one. It's kind of like that. I see that's a lot of times we knowing that contrast, and that's the same as light and dark. It's like, we don't know what light is. We came from the light. It's like, so if we go off track and are in darkness, it's like we have to be constantly going back to the light, back to the light.
So what was your journey like? Because I know like at the fourth grade career fair, they didn't say who wants to work with people, well, and then coach them on intuition. What was your journey to get to this place?
So I arrived here unwillingly. So I had been doing business coaching, personal coaching. I had went to school for nutrition, and I was studying that and helping people with that. And then I had a session, which is like during COVID. And I had this woman, and she was getting very emotional about these things. And I tried to calm her down. And in that moment, I was like, there's somebody here. And it was the first time I ever seen like a spirit. It looked like Ghost, right? The movie Ghost. And I'm like, she's got a purple dress on, a hat, pearl, and she's like, that's my Aunt Pearl. And I was like, this is so crazy. And I had no experience of this before previously. And so a friend told me, hey, go check out this school, because I needed reference. I had nobody to talk to. I'm having this crazy, and it was happening more and more. The more that I would sit with somebody, the more that I just download what was happening for them. And so she said, come, go check out the school. So I went to the school. It's called in Lilydale, New York. And it's just a place where fourth and fifth psychics, generational psychics, live within a community. So it's a closed community. It's only open for those type of people who live there. And then they'd have people come into the school. And so as soon as I arrived there, I was like, this feels like home. Like, it was like, this was a suppressed feeling within me. And then what must have been unleashed. And then just all that intuition, everything coming back to me. And so I just studied all of this, but I still didn't want to do it. I was just studying to figure out the information. And then I just kept getting called back to this. And I started posting my interactions online. And within a short period of posting my interactions, I went to 0 to 250,000 on YouTube. And I was like, whoa, I have a business.
So when you say your interactions, okay, I've like got my popcorn out. I'm like in this now. Is it that, so could you see Aunt Pearl and your client could, or only you could see Aunt Pearl?
So only I could see it, because how it works is there's a bandwidth of what we see in our physical reality based on our perception, right? And there's so many things that science says that, like, our perception is limited to see. We can't see Wi-Fi. We can't see like the full spectrum lighting, all that stuff. So that just goes to show what we can't see. But what I was able to do is to connect to the spirit world and see into the spirit world, hear, feel, know, and now it's not everybody's senses all come online at once, right? So it's usually just one sense that comes on. And then over time, I've developed all of the psychic senses to enhance when I'm helping someone. But yeah, it's like just me, because I'm just the telephone line between the spirit world and this world.
And now when you do that, I'm kind of thinking back to folks who have been on our podcast about, have talked about Reiki and
Mhm.
how they can sometimes, they feel alongside with their patients. One girl was talking about being chased and mugged in New York. And her Reiki therapist felt it with her. Do you go through those same experiences when you're working with someone?
So I don't I don't necessarily feel what they're feeling, but I know what's going on with them. So which means I know I can separate myself from their experience but I know why the Reiki person feels that, because she's also working with the energetic in another dimension, right?
Hmm.
They say that there's 13 dimensions, right? Of these different dimensions of reality. And that's all somebody's doing when they're doing energy healing. They're working in another dimension.
That completely makes sense as I've heard people describe. And I like that we have the bravery, we meaning you, to come on and talk about this because it kind of goes into what I call the butterfly net category. Typically, I oftentimes will hear me address our audience as witches because we can fold fitted sheets and, do all other kind of witchcraft like that. But I think this kind of falls into that category. And I love that we're able to talk about it so bravely and openly because it's real for those that have experienced it. Like, it sounds kind of crazy. I had lost my Apple Watch the other day. And I was like, okay, where it just show, and I saw it in a bag I had packed, and I went right to it, and I'm like, crazy. But like crazier things have happened, right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of reminded me, our bodies know so much, and our brain downloads so much
Mhm.
that we just don't even, we're so busy on the phone or thinking about the next task that I did not have a conscious memory of where I had put my watch. But then when I kind of asked it, and so when you work with your clients, are you trying to help them grow and develop their personal skills, or do you just mainly function as a telephone line?
I also, psychic is just connecting with the person. So I mostly just connect with the person, see what's going on with them. And then if I need to assist with bringing in people that have passed, not every reading is needed for that, but then I'll bring in the lineage, like what's happened in the lineage line and how that can help them heal with that. And if it's they're needing more, they have a lot of questions, I more like to help to teach them that, because I don't want to, I'm disempowering somebody, or I answer their questions without them learning how to tap in on their own. But then sometimes if it's someone's just stuck, well, then I'm helping them to get unstuck. And it's not really about that. So every session is completely different. But if I feel, okay, this person really needs to start to trust themselves more. This is, they're at a turning point now where they need to make more decisions based on their own tuition, then I'm going to guide them in that direction and teach them so that they don't have to search outside for the answers, because I tell them, like, you're going to know the best for the answers. Like that's going to be always going to empower you to make the best decision.
I love that's your goal is to help each person that you work with learn how to grow and trust their own intuition because we do know on some level that, to your words, we can't see, we can't really articulate it, but yet we've all lived it and we know it's there. And we always so many guests come on when we're talking about trauma and relationships and things like that. And they go, I saw the red flags. I saw hindsight's 2020, but yet it's like, it's more normal for us to say, I saw the red flags and I ignored them than it is for us to say, I really did a deep dive with my intuition and I realized why there was a red flag and I trusted it.
Yeah.
I really love what you're doing to help normalize that.
And I feel like that is because and our religion has made like it taboo to tap into extrasensory abilities, which everybody is intuitive. Everybody is psychic, but what degree is it is it suppressed?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and in this day and age, we have to have discernment more than ever before because we don't know what's real and what's fake, but we can feel into something that just didn't feel right. That felt not coherent with what they were saying and we have to really start tuning into it because there's more things coming at us, like you're saying, like so much stimulation, everything coming in with this. It's like, well, what do I need? I need to take time for myself or, this and that. And that's the more you tap into the intuition, the more hey, I need to take a break. Hey, like I'm upset because of this. It's a tool that you can use to help manage yourself.
And I love that you kind of bring us to that direction because we were talking a lot this season about health and hormones and your body will react. Yeah. Your body will let you know when it's the world around you will make it sick, but not in a traditional medical way. And so trying to kind of develop our understanding of that has been, I think, a journey for a lot of us, myself included. And so, how do you kind of help your clients when you work with them get in touch with? I wish I had realized back in December of last year what my body was trying to tell me before I had a full blown autoimmune disease. And so I was just rationalizing every symptom. I was pushing forward because that's what you do. You got to wake up tomorrow and beat the street. Like, how do you help people normalize and make peace with that?
Well, this is the thing is in the Western world, we see mind, body, spirit separate. So it's like, oh, I just have a physical symptom. It's just my shoulder. It's just my leg. It's just this. And it's not connected to anything that's happening in your life. Your relationship isn't good. Your job sucks. Like it's not connected, right? So that is the first way of connection of understanding that. And have you ever heard of Louise Hay?
No.
Okay. She produced Hay House and she passed away, but she was like huge. She had this book called like Your Body Speaks. And she was not a psychic. She was like just a hypnotist, but she put all these people under and she figured out that these symptoms connected in with their body, all these different symptoms. And she did thousands of interactions and saw that it was all connected. So I feel like, for someone to look at, okay, what's going on with my body and then tap into say, what does my shoulder need? What does my leg need? Or why am I getting these headaches? And kind of ask, because we have our higher self, our soul, right? And our soul studies show that already knows what our future is, right? So what's happening is it's constantly trying to realign us, right? And a lot of times, when we're getting these symptoms that are happening, we're out of energetic alignment with our lives. And that's where, we have to really start paying attention to say, oh, I'm getting symptoms of something and I'm going to the doctor so many times and nothing's going on. They can't find anything. What could be going on in my life?
So when you say out of alignment with our life, you mean like the overall journey that we're supposed to be on. We have
Yes.
somehow taken a detour. We've somehow gotten distracted by a store window or something. And our soul is trying to kind of use this physical, I don't want to say medium, but this physical medium to get
Vessel.
us back on
Yeah.
track, to stop us from doing whatever
Yep.
it was that we were doing so that we could, that completely makes sense.
So how I see it is like, okay, we came in for our soul came to earth. We decided, oh, I want to learn about unconditional love or, unconditional forgiveness, right? And all these different lessons, right? So we come in and we have the lessons aren't necessarily set. It's what we're going to learn, right? So if we're not evolving, or if our soul is not evolving, then we're going to get the knock. It's going to be
Mhm.
like a knock, then it's going to be a knock over your head, you know, to wake you up that something needs to change. I had my babysitter, and this last 6 months, she's been in 3 car accidents. Okay. And I told her in the last, in every single time somebody hit her. And so I told her, isn't that interesting that you've been in these 3 different car accidents so recent? And she was like, yeah, but people weren't paying attention. They hit me. I said, but what could this mean that's
Mhm.
out of alignment in your life? Because how I see it is that, okay, sometimes we look at the clock, it's 11:11, it's like
Yep.
synchronicity numbers, right? But sometimes I'll look at the clock and it'll say 11:12, right? Or it'll be just off and I'm not getting that 11:11 anymore. And it's just because because we're out of alignment. You know what I mean? I'm saying that the car accident is showing you, hey, you're out of alignment. Get back into alignment with your soul's evolution of what you need to learn, right? And so with that, you kind of know when you start being in the flow. Some of your listeners may have experienced that when you're really get in more alignment, you start to see the synchronicities, the coincidences that you cannot pass by because you're in the flow of life now.
So would you or if you were just kind of like if we were just hanging out in your kitchen, eating and you didn't have the skill that you have, would it be fair to kind of say that it's when all things kind of fall together? Like if I'm like, girl, my life is going so great right now. Like, let me tell you, my job is great, my love life's great, my dog's finally potty trained, my money's straight. Like, how do we differentiate just things being okay and then things being genuinely in or out of alignment?
Well, so I feel like we go through cycles, right? So it's like I'm on a down cycle, so it's normal that we go through cycles, like we go through seasons, right? But we kind of can know, but whether we admit it or not, like, hey, like this relationship is a dead end. Like this is not working, and that is something, it's like, okay, I'm going to take the steps to changing it, like that I need to do within the relationship. Or is this something that like it's no longer in alignment? It's just because it's the communication, even if I talk, it's not going to get better. Even if we rearrange this, it's not going to get better. It's like we already know, but we don't want to admit it because the problem is maybe it's going to affect our, like, our lives in such a different way that the unknown is better than the comfort is better than the unknown.
Think that's so true of our lives in many ways. Whether we don't like our job or we don't like the city we live in or we don't like the relationship we're in, I always say the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. I already know where this devil can tap dance and hide things, and I already know all his tricks. And to go into an arena where I don't, that's very intimidating. And that feels to me gives me a lot more anxiety than to stay. So I can see where it does take a lot of strength to truly be able to do the self work, to dig in, to know in your intuition, is it better to stay here? Or is it better to make a decision and step out of this, to get back in alignment? And so kind of help 'cause I can just see I can hear my mother listening to this and she's like, "Nah, that's da, 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 da." To that person, kind of what is different when you're in New Orleans and they're dragging you off the street to do a tarot card reading? What is different with that versus kind of how you work with your client?
So, how I work with someone is because I was in not like a traditional medium that is somebody that if you actually like, they do mediumship, right? What I'm doing is it's like I was guided here, right? So, it's like all the things that I've done have now evolved into doing this. So, I take it through coaching them and energetics, because I've studied that for 35 years to try to get them into like it's the energy shift that I need someone to make on an energetic level with your identity of who they believe they are, right? So kind of working in that way. And I use it through my psychic sense to see, okay, this is what's going on with you. I know you're saying this, and this is what else, and help them. And then I'll bring in the ancestors to assist on a lineage level to heal this. Because like pretty much 100% of the time, when someone has something going on, it's parallel to the same thing that their mom or their grandma or their family member has experienced. it looks different, the event, the situation, but it's the same energetics. It's the same energy. You know, like a lot of times, okay, I look in the lineage line, there's addiction, there's betrayal, there's, hate. There's all different things that have played in the lineage line. And somehow that's threading through your life. And a lot of the listeners on here, if they're listening, they're probably into self-help, right? And those people into the self-help are the torchbearers for their family to kind of overturn these generational traumas. And that means that we have to change what we're doing. Change, if our lineage line came from a lot of bad relationships, it's like we have to change that.
I
And
love hearing you say that. Yeah, that's possible to change it.
yeah. And another thing I wanted to say before is that when we're talking about being in alignment, I feel like this is a great gauge to kind of know. Okay. So much of us and the world are living as victims of our life, right? We're allowing people, places, situations to impact how we feel. And it's this person, it's my boss, it's my relationship, it's the government. All of this is happening to me and I'm victim to it. But when people step into the creator of their life and they realize that they are in the driver's seat of their life and that they have control over their life, they live a completely different life because then we're not allowing the outside and we don't need the outside anymore. The validation, that all of that we're searching, we don't need that anymore because we can then step in and have the power and we become sovereign in our energy, which means we don't allow outside things to impact how we feel. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's ultimately, if I feel like what is the journey that we're here for is to understand that if something's triggering you, person, place, or thing, it's something inside of you that you have to heal. And healing could be coming to neutral with it, meaning you're not charged about it anymore. You've somehow healed that wound to release it. And that I feel like is part of getting to that level of sovereignty, right? It's like so much of us are focused out here. My life is not good because this is happening. No, you can change that and you step into this identity.
Love hearing you talk about that. We had a guest on recently who was adopted and as an infant, and her adopted family was 180 from her biological family. And it wasn't until later in life she realized she kind of got to meet and kind of compare. She had lived step for step the same life as her bio mom through being teen pregnancy, through drug addiction, through being in an abusive relationship, just step for step. And this hadn't been modeled for her in her adopted life. And I think that we often kind of, I don't want to say excuse, but we go, well, that's what she was shown. So that's what she knows. Her mom was a teen mom. Her mom had abusive relationships. Her mom, da, 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 da. That's what she sees. She thinks that's normal. And so to hear you kind of articulate this kind of helps to bring some clarity and even peace to know that your journey is somewhat predetermined, but also that you have power to kind of shift those pieces as well.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why that most likely happened for her is because what happens is we have this field outside of ourselves. Okay. And that's what this is science has stated, and it's that field holds the imprints from our past, the DNA, the
Mhm.
bloodline. And within that, it's like we're not getting away from the addiction bloodline. It's like that's carried, I'm using that as an example, but all this other stuff, trauma, all that stuff, they had this movie, it was called Heal. And I watched it and they had these rats and they had the rats smell the cherry blossoms. And once they smelled them, they would shock them and they'd go into a stress response. Then the next generation, they would just literally have them smell the cherry blossoms and they would go into a stress response. And that is just one generation.
Wow. So that makes it's embedded in an
It's embedded in
invisible
the
way.
field.
Like,
It's embedded in the field, in our DNA, and our bloodline. And until we're ready to step forward and say, hey, my family's dealt with abusive relationships my whole life. Like I'm in an abusive relationship. I'm no longer going to tolerate this. I'm going to raise my standard for my life and for that. When someone finally in the lineage line takes a stand against that, studies show it heals seven generations in the past, 7 generations into the future. And so you're literally the torchbearer for healing the entire lineage line. And it's through that person's that now finally had a voice to take a stand against what has been occurring, and it's going to take a whole nother level version of you to do that, because it's like a fish in water. If somebody was born into a family of addiction, but they broke free of it, it's still within their thought patterns, within their emotional thoughts, like within their emotions, their beliefs. It's all consuming, right? So we don't even know that we're thinking this or feeling this. And breaking free is a different version of us to get to that next level.
I love this. This definitely aligns and brings so much clarity to stories. Because when she was telling me that, I was like, girl, you had to have heard this sneak preview from somebody else. Like, that's just not luck that you had the exact, and almost to the same year as well.
Yeah.
It's just, so that does help to, as much as I think there are maybe some listeners who are like, this is a little butterfly net. It does really help bring some tangible clarity to stories like that that
Because
people had.
Yeah, because this is the reality, is it's the energy that is continuing. It's like, if somebody has pain and they cut off their arm, there's something called phantom syndrome, and it's like that energy is like, if everybody was abused in the family, it's like, that is imprinted in you. It seems like, to you to act and behave the same way. And that energy has to stop. So it's like you have to change the energy to stop the pattern, right? Or it continues.
That makes so much sense. So let's say the way someone's listening and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I need to do this," because she doesn't want to continue the generational trauma for her daughter. She's seen it with her mom. Like, what if someone wants to reach out and kind of connect with you? What can they expect when they work with you, and kind of what's the typical journey like?
So typically I do hour and a half sessions. And during that time, I'm doing everything I can to, in the time period I have, to really help them see why things are happening this way and what needs to shift with them to change that. And once they understand, wow, this didn't start with me, the guilt and the shame part can kind of go away. Because then again, we think, well, why didn't my relationship work out? Why was I addicted to this or that? It's like, we're blaming ourselves versus not understanding the bigger picture of the lineage line. And it's played in everybody's lives in some sort of version, right? And so that kind of helps them, and then helps them to also have closure or healing with the ancestors of this, and them stepping forward to share whatever they need to share to have closure on this. And then just every session is for healing. So everything is designed to help them to heal on another level, you know, on an energetic level, on the spiritual level, on the physical level, so that we can actually apply it on the physical level, and and it's seen.
I love that. And I love that there's just a way for us to talk about it and to kind of just bring clarity to it and to know that there is a path, that there are things you can do versus just sitting back and going, oh, well, it is what it is. Let me just try to make the best of this. So we will drop all of your socials and your contact in the show notes. So if y'all are driving or cooking while you're listening to this, don't panic. You'll be able to get all Allison's info. And I just love that we have women like you who are brave to step forward and talk about these. I say taboo because
Uh-huh.
you brought up religion and you brought, and that's a word, and shame and guilt. Oh, those are all very hard words that we carry around, and then to try to kind of weave all those together and understanding ourselves can be a heavy journey for someone. So I really appreciate you coming on. And Allison, what do you want to leave our listeners with today?
That change can happen in an instant. Somebody's like, it took me 10 years to stop smoking. No, the moment that you decided to stop smoking is when you stopped. Right. And it's like, you don't have to go through 10 years of therapy. It's like, just if something's not working, just make a change. And that can be like in a second that you make a change. If I'm like, I want to lose weight, it's like I'm still talking about losing weight. I'm not there losing weight. If I'm losing weight, I'm not talking about it anymore. And I'm already implemented the change and made the action steps to creating that to happen. So if you're like, I'm working on something, it's almost there, well, then you're not in the right energy for that change to take place, for that transformation to take place. And it's just that one decision that makes the transformation take place.
That completely resonates so much, with me in so many ways. Like when I've wanted to work out more, or wanted to do something, and I write it in my planner, and I have all these good intentions, and it's not until I decide I've finally had enough. I've had enough of looking at my arms in photos, or looking at myself when you're at the pool with other people. You're right. It's when you decide you've had enough. Miraculously, I can look like Michelle Obama arms overnight. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Yeah. And what I want to say about that is that I feel like is the old way is learning through pain, right? And we kind of forced into it to that. But if we instead know, we already we've in tune with ourselves, then we just know just we have to make the change, right? Because what happens is when we're forced to make the change because of a health issue or whatever it is you're dealing with, then it's not as effortless as if you just made the choice.
Mhm. And I think that kinda maybe comes back to, like, our inner child maybe? We don't wanna be told what to do, but if it's just of my own free will, if you tell me to drink milk for breakfast, I'm like, "I ain't drinking milk for breakfast." But if I wake up and I'm like, "You know what sounds good? A good cup of milk." That's how and so I definitely when I coach a lot of sales groups and things like that, and then we gotta make it the customer's idea. Gotta make it their idea. There is not a stick big enough to beat this idea into someone's head. You have to help them understand why they came into the store today, why they're looking to make this change, why they're help them understand their own why. And then the solution doesn't feel like a high pressure and so I definitely see a lot of alignment with that, with kind of what you're saying as well.
Yeah.
I have loved having you on today. I've loved having this very, very honest and raw conversation because it is something I know that we talk about at our wine clubs and book clubs very hush hush, and each person kind of shares their story. And instead of feeling like we're in a secret club about it, we all are in this together. And
Totally.
let's just talk about it openly and collectively grow and collectively kind of share, like kind of like with you, like as you know better, you do better, and you're sharing your knowledge with us. And I so appreciate
Yes, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.